Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. This one's going to be a good show. It really is. But more importantly, it's going to be a great show because Pitt has matched its win total from last year, which was an abysmal year last year. But Pitt is now 3-0 and coming off a tremendous victory, a come-from-behind victory in beating the West Virginia Mountaineers and the Big 12 officials. So that's really good. So Pitt is right now 3-0, which is incredible right now. Pitt has an opportunity to go beat Youngstown State next week, go 4-0, and be completely undefeated in conference play, which I believe it's been over 30 years since that's happened. People might have to correct my numbers on that, but it's been a long time. But before we get into it, guys, you always know how the game rolls here. The show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Guys, supporting small business is always great, but more importantly, supporting small business that's owned by two great pitmen are only even better. It's a great opportunity to support them. Before your tailgates, go see them. They have plenty of different options between light beers, heavier lager beers, IPAs, anything you really need. You can go through there. You guys have seen the pictures I've posted. A large place. But more importantly, it's provided by two great pitmen. Continue to support them. Also go in there, get the Icy Light cans with the Pitt logo on it. Also, too, get the fake Slide Pilsner, which helps support Alliance 412, which we'll talk about tonight, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh and helps pay the players and keeping talent here, like what you saw with Eli Holstein, Kanate Mumfield, Kenny Johnson, guys that you saw this weekend, Desmond Reed. Keeping those guys here and continue to have success as we go on through the years. Guys, again, go see my friends at Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Next week, possibly, we'll have on another sponsorship, another great pitman as well. So we'll have two sponsors for the show. We'll be getting to a bunch of that. If you cannot already tell, my voice is still somewhat repairing from yesterday. This morning, it was pretty rough. Could barely talk as it was. The amount of yelling and screaming going on yesterday was too much fun. But we got a lot to talk about today. Overall, the resiliency of this team, when you see the amount of adversity this team goes through on a day in, day out basis between the games, some of it's on their own end. But guess what? Yesterday, I think on both ends, we can really agree that the officiating was pretty skeptical. And that was the Big 12 crew. I thought it was below average, to say the least. Pat Narduzzi certainly spoke about it. He said that they beat, West Virginia in the Backyard Brawl and also beat the officials. Well, that cost him $5,000 today. At the end of the day, let's be honest, that's chump change for Pat Narduzzi. So I'd say I'd willingly pay that. Just calling a spade a spade. The officiating was horrible yesterday. But guess what? We're here to talk about the good stuff, which is the 38-34 victory that we got into yesterday. We'll go into a bunch of the stats. Obviously, too, one of the things that kind of bothered me from yesterday were a bunch of people pointed out to me in the post-game presser, Neil Brown says he doesn't complain about officiating. Don't know about that. We'll go into, we'll show you the video here, give you your own thoughts. It's a lot like 2022. You're seeing out of Neil Brown so far. I think West Virginia's in for a really long year, rough year. They made a lot of mistakes down the stretch. They had a lot of help down the stretch, too, and I think that they're really in for a rough stretch. I think they could potentially still make some noise in the Big 12 just because it's a let's be honest, it's not a good conference these past couple of years. But overall, we'll get into it. But first off, we'll get into the comments section here to see everybody who's in here right now. We had a ton of people in before the show even started. And again, thank you guys. And actually, before we get started into the show, to you Pitt fans that showed up to that game, you guys were absolutely phenomenal in that game. I mean, for how loud it was truly impressive. The game day atmosphere, I heard from recruits that were currently at the game, talked about how the atmosphere was incredible, that just how loud it was at the block punt, especially when Pitt was on defense. The crowd was incredible. You guys really showed out and shrewd. It was an incredible environment. To be there, a part of that was incredible. It matched what it was in 2022. Again, the amount of noise that were made, especially on turnovers, on non-turnover plays, you name it. I mean, you guys were absolutely phenomenal. That's what the atmosphere should be like on a regular day in and day out basis. And Again, we'll go into that more of that the game atmosphere overall. Obviously, Alliance 412 continues to show that they're getting the money to the right guys. We're seeing a lot of that, but also too, there's more help that's needed there. If you're not an Alliance 412 member today, we'll certainly talk about that, why it's important for you to jump on board with that. But first, some of these comments here. Smash the like button, subscribe. Yes, if you're on X, head on over to YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe. The channel is growing because of you guys, and I'm beyond appreciative for what you guys do. For 55 minutes of the game, Pitt was getting dominated in the trenches. I'd say in the beginning portion, you saw a little bit of the Pitt defensive line having a little bit of issues. But overall, there were 4 or 5 sacks yesterday from what I saw on the game tape last night from watching the game. A lot of those, sometimes Eli was moving in the pocket. I love how he moves in the pocket. Some of those were just bad plays on our end, especially 2 up front. But overall, I thought the offensive line actually played a really damn good game. You saw certain portions in the game where there were spurt plays where they were able to get through there. A couple blitz packages, especially Trotter when he was coming through up the middle. Swim moves he has. I think he's a good football player. I think he actually did a pretty good job. I mean, Pitt contained them to it for quite a bit. And I think Pitt did a really good job understanding the passing game and understanding that there was a lot of holes. And I was saying it during the game, too. I was tweeting during the game. You just saw West Virginia's pass defense they were in circles. They had no idea what was going on. I mean, I was saying early on in the game, they looked like Swiss cheese. In the pass game, they had no idea what was going on. And a lot of times, I think Pitt got a little bit too cute. We talked about, you saw the 2 tweets I put out. The 4th down play, which is obviously nice being 3-0. Yes. Still pumped. There was a question here before about it. 100% agree, Anthony. Here, it's right here. Love the 4th down play at the end of the half. Flip the ball to a guy who was running away from the line of scrimmage. Still scratching my head on that one. So, Anthony, they talked about that after the game. That actually wasn't the play call. It was a lot more simplified than that. It was not supposed to be that. They still don't know what that was. They'll get corrected. At the time being, I said it was a bad play call, but that wasn't even the play was supposed to be. So that's just miscommunication on their end. Obviously, we gifted West Virginia 3 points to end the half. Obviously, we probably should have ended the half at 17-14 at most. But I think we gifted them 3 points there going into the half at 17-17. But overall, there were a couple plays, a couple like the halfback tosses or the halfback reverses. A couple of those almost turned into turnovers. I thought those were questionable calls. Just sometimes I think the creativity was going a little bit too far. For me, I just watching that game, and I kept tweeting out, just throw the ball down the field. West Virginia, and you certainly saw at the end of the game, West Virginia could not stop. And people were talking about the run game. They're not running enough. I didn't have a problem with it. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And you saw in the second half, really, where, the first half, Pitt was moving the ball at will. Obviously, Desmond Reed hit a touchdown catch. Kenny Johnson had numerous catches down the sideline. You saw the agility and the athleticism by Eli Holstein. I thought he did really well in another game. The third quarter was pretty strange. I think in the 15-minute quarter that we had there in the third quarter, 11 minutes was on West Virginia. Obviously, Pitt had a block punt in that, but before that, they ran a punt, but no one was covering where the punter was. West Virginia gets a first down. The next 3 downs, they go 3 and out, go to punt. Maverick Gracio blocks a punt. Brandon George picks it up, takes it for a touchdown. So Pitt scores there. So their offense isn't on the field. So the majority of the time in the third quarter, Pitt's defense was really on the field. And they struggled at times to be able to stop the run. They had a little bit of chunk plays here and there. Guys like Nakai Johnson, Sincere Edwards, Jimmy Scott, Nate Matlack, those guys I thought really had really good games. Nick James in the middle, I thought had a really good game. I think Isaiah Neal, Elliott Donald, they struggled a little bit. They were getting pushed around a little bit. When I look at Isaiah Neal, he's only a redshirt freshman. He'll grow into his body even more. Young player. He's going to be a leader on this team as the years go on. He just needs to continue to learn. Also, too, I think people need to understand we're really without 2 guys in the defensive tackle position. Sean Fitzsimmons, he'll be probably back in a couple weeks, I would think, from how things are going. Obviously, Anthony Johnson, we don't know a timetable return on him. Those are 2 guys that really I kind of looked at were important, especially Anthony Johnson, who's a bigger guy, can take up a lot of space there. Just a mix and match with the smaller D tackles and the speed and the agility we have. But, man, I thought Nakai Johnson in the run game and the run defense, I thought he did really well. Nick James continues to show why he starts so much. And when I was watching the defense overall, especially up front because people were asking me about pressure, Pitt actually got a lot of pressure on Garrett Green. And, we dive into the numbers here, just going in on the offensive side of the football here. Garrett Green was 16 of 30. And again, I talked about this before. West Virginia fans, there's a lot of things that WVU fans did this offseason that just made no sense to me. One, the hype around Garrett Green being a potential Heisman candidate was absolute lunacy. West Virginia winning the game against Penn State, I thought was lunacy. I looked at those two rosters. I saw the two different coaching styles. Andy Kotelnicki became the offensive coordinator of Penn State. I thought they were going to have trouble there. West Virginia turned the first game of the year into a Super Bowl. They get blown out, absolutely embarrassed on national television. And then they come into Pitt. There were some calls in this game. I think the most blatant one was a touchdown that should have been called back for West Virginia. The blatant face mask penalty, especially in the end zone, and one a face mask penalty and pass interference for pushing off. None of that was called. The holding calls at the end of the game were atrocious. I thought they were ticky-tacky. The same thing goes for even West Virginia. I thought there were some really ticky-tacky calls against West Virginia, even though a couple of the Wyatt Milam holding calls. But overall, when you looked at this defensive line, when I watched the plays and I watched this defensive line, the one thing that just continues to evade this defensive line is finishing the play. And what I mean by finishing the play, when you're in the backfield, you need to make the tackle. Nate Matlack in this game had 6 pressures alone. He had half a sack. If you go back and you watch the game, and I took on numerous plays when I just saw Nate Matlack, he put the spin cycle on a lot of these guys, especially to Nick Malone. I thought he did a really good job there. There were a couple holding calls that weren't called against Wyatt Milam, against Nate Matlack. Still, when you're around the quarterback, you need to make the play. Obviously, too, I think the tackling needs to get a little bit better. I think that could certainly help Pickett off the field at a higher rate. But overall, Garrett Green, 16 of 30 for 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. As you can imagine, guys, that's 52% completion percentage. That's where Garrett Green sat all last year. What was the completion percentage against Penn State? 52%. That's just the world that he lives in. It's 16 of 30 for 210 yards, 7 yards per attempt, 2 TDs, and 2 interceptions. To me, I'm going to be honest, I thought he would have had a bigger game. I think the passing game for West Virginia was just, abysmal at times. Ryland Gandy, and that has a lot to do with Ryland Gandy, Rashad Battle, and Taman Lynham. Ryland Gandy is your number 1 corner. It's not even close. I think that each passing game, he continues to get better. I think he locked down guys, especially when he was on them, whether it was Hudson Clement, what's his name? Bray, the wide receiver coming in from Oklahoma State. I thought he shut him down when he was on him. Rashad Battle certainly gets better as the time goes on. Cruz Brookins obviously had a great game. He had an interception. Kyle Lewis, I thought, had a great game. That guy never comes off the field. I got a little nervous when they called a targeting call on him, and it got overturned, thank goodness. Led with his shoulder, not the crown of the helmet. But Garrett Green, he is what it is. I didn't understand the Heisman hype. You saw all week about how, West Virginia fans were calling this an easy win, calling Eli Holstein an average to below average quarterback. Heck, even Mountaineer Paul was calling him trash. He was horrible. Well, the game's over, and Eli Holstein wiped the floor with Garrett Green. It wasn't even close. Especially, too, just the throws. The amount of throws that Garrett Green threw out of bounds or nowhere near the wide receiver is just mind-blowing. I'm not sure exactly from last year to this year. I think he's still the same, but there's just some throws, even the deep ball. Usually in the deep ball, he provides a quite a bit of a spark, because last year his deep ball was pretty good. His intermediate game was trash. His intermediate game this year is horrendous, and then his deep ball passing is horrendous this year. A lot of the times it was dink and dunk, 5 to 10 yards, and finding that in that short range. Intermediate is really your 10 to 15, almost 20 yards, and then 20 plus is your deep ball. I don't know. There was a lot of question marks there. When it comes to the running game, this is where really West Virginia wants to apply the run, and we talked about that and what they would do. C.J. Donaldson, 19 carries for 79 yards, a 4.2 average, 1 touchdown. He had a good day. I think, obviously he was still under 100 yards, but at the end of the day, 4.2 yards per carry is not bad. Garrett Green, 11 carries for 49 yards. Those were really all scrambles. And again, it brings me back to him. 11 carries for 49 yards were really scrambles. If Pitt finishes the play and finishes the tackle, Pitt doesn't have those issues. So, in this game overall, it says here 188 total rushing yards. But in reality, you take some of this stuff away to where you complete the tackle, you probably take about 30 to 35 yards on top of that just away from him. So you're looking at 150 yards rushing. Still not great, but the number's a lot more solidified. Basically what I'm trying to say. At the end of the day, he was able to still move the ball with his feet. His longest run was 23 yards. C.J. Donaldson was 14. Also, when I watched the defensive line, the majority of the time, Pitt was stopping the run, but it was the chunk plays. Braylon Lovelace, he missed a tackle. He had C.J. Donaldson wrapped up for a 3-yard gain. Doesn't complete the tackle. C.J. Donaldson goes past him. It turns into an 11, 12-yard gain. Those chunk plays are what led to WVU getting able to have a lot of running style and getting those first downs. Because the majority of the time, you saw this defensive line being able to stop the run. You saw it in the fourth quarter. Again, the fourth quarter. This team is just a second-half warrior. The fourth quarter was just truly what you wanted to see, the full game. Again, the defense comes up and stands up and stops the run, comes up and gets a sack on Garrett Green, pressure. This defense can apply pressure, but it has to finish the play. It has to finish the tackle. And I think that's one thing that you look at this defense, and it's just like you're almost there. You are almost there every time. I think Sincere Edwards has played really well. I think Jimmy Scott continues to play at a high level, especially in the fourth quarter. He comes up with that sack. He continues to play at a high level. I think Nate Matlack's done a good job. I think Chief Borders is getting there. He needs more repetitions for a guy. Obviously, he didn't have a hand in the dirt last year or really all in his career. The more he plays, the better he'll get. But overall, it comes down to completing the tackle and making the tackle when you first hit the runner. That's kind of how I saw this. And and just watching the tape over and over. And for me, I hit pause, replay it, hit pause, replay it. And you're just kind of just running through it. You looked at some of these plays and it's almost like Pitt could have got off the field in the third quarter multiple times if they just complete the play. And I think that, all of us, for instance, talk about, well, there's not enough pressure there. There needs to be pressure here. They're getting pressure. It's just not completing the play. And they come under control. There's no control. Kyle Lewis had multiple plays in the backfield. Didn't finish it. Braylon Lovelace, Nate Matlack. Nakai Johnson had a couple plays in the backfield. Couldn't finish it. We got to finish those plays. You finish those plays, I think the offense is on the field for a lot longer. And then you had some crazy plays. Obviously, you had a block punt, so you didn't get the ball back there. You scored a touchdown. Defense is back on the field. They're back on the field for a long time. Then the offense comes back out. They get to a 3rd down and 1. They thought they got the first down. They didn't. They run the ball. They lose yardage. You see a couple bad plays here and there in terms of play calling or just the miscommunication of it. It was a weird third quarter. But overall, the defense it's in the backfield. It just has to complete the play. Make the tackle. You make life 10 times easier if you just complete the tackle. Let me see here. Get to some of your comments here. I apologize, guys. I'm running on a rant right now. JJ, I missed you at the Alliance 41210. Yeah, man, I was walking around a lot. I was talking to a lot of people. Also, too, Mrs. McIntyre, was great to meet you. Javon McIntyre's mom. It was cool just walking around and being able to meet people and just have the conversations and tell them thank you for being there. It means certainly a lot. Obviously, we love our Pitt guys. We love our guys who just get up in the uniform and do what they need to do and played at a high level yesterday. And Pat Narduzzi, man, Pat Narduzzi and Cade Bell and this staff as a whole, Jacob Pronowski, Jeremy Darveau, Randy Bates, Brian Manilak, you name it. Archie Collins, Corey Sanders, you name it. These guys right now are coaching at a high level. They're making adjustments as the game goes on. That's a great thing. You love to see the amount of adjustments that they're making. But just as a whole, I think that this staff is doing a good job on a regular basis and making the right corrections as the game goes on. And right now, Pitt's 3-0. I mean, at the end of the day, too, it's a complete reversal from last year. Pitt's 2-0 against the Big 12. I mean, just the Big 12 has looked awful so far in these first 3 games. The amount of losses they've had, the close games they've had. UNLV is just, dominating the Big 12 at this point. But overall, I mean, to be 3-0 right now is incredible, and having the opportunity next week in Youngstown State to go 4-0, and that's no pushover game either. Those players need to get it together. I think they know that. There's no hold up, there's no let up or nothing. Your job is to go out there, shut that team out, and then go up there and 60 points. That's your goal still. But overall, you look at this team and just the resiliency of this team. It's a complete reversal from last year. Last year, if this would have happened, both of those games, Cincinnati or West Virginia, was a loss. Love the play. Okay, we already talked about that one. That was just a mistake. That was just a miscommunication thing. Hail to Pitt. They may be the most exciting Pitt games I've seen in live. Amen. Just how loud it was incredible. JJ, your final score prediction was almost spot on. Yes, Elena. I did say I had Pitt winning 38-35. Pitt won 38-34. You'll see a lot of West Virginia fans said I was nuts in the comments section. This was comical. West Virginia fans telling me all week, if Penn State couldn't score 38 points against us, you guys certainly aren't scoring 38 points against us. If they only scored 35, you're not scoring more than 35. You want to get to 30. Well, here we are. Pitt scored 38. So just tells you the backyard brawl. You throw it out the door. Eli's amazing. Has that winning gene. Eric, I completely agree. You heard a lot of stuff this week from West Virginia fans talking about how he's not good. He's a redshirt freshman. He can't do it. I mean, he lit it up. Had a hell of a football game, was able to distribute the football to numerous receivers again, to the tight end. Gavin Bartholomew had a good day, a number of good catches. And we'll go over a bunch of players that had a really good game. But I want to talk about one person who really doesn't get a lot of credit. He got his first catch in this game and got his first catch of the season, but Dejon Reynolds. I mean, that's a guy that I talked about early on in the spring camp and the fall camp. He's a guy that can make catches in traffic. You saw it all last year. Now you see it this year. Really in triple coverage. Eli Holstein really threw that 50 yards. It was on the 40-yard line. But for where he threw it is at the 45, and it was 5 yards in the end zone. A 50-yard bomb he throws down the field, and Dejon Reynolds brings that ball in with triple coverage. I mean, it's a hell of a football play. And I said it last year, and people will just, again, I understand it was a bad year, so people lose their minds and they want to talk about it. They don't see it. This team has a lot of talent at the skill position. It's a deep room. You saw guys like Konate Mumfield, again, have a hell of a game. Kenny Johnson's going to be here for this year and next year, and then he's going to go to the NFL because he has all the attributes, and this offense is meant for him to explode in terms of statistics. But Konate Mumfield, Kenny Johnson, Raphael Poppy Williams, C.J. Lee, Dejon Reynolds, Gavin Bartholomew, Donovan Reed. I'm sorry, Desmond Reed. Desmond Reed, overall in the game in terms of rushing, take a look at it here. For rushing purposes, he rushed for 11 times, 26 yards. That's 2.4 average, but overall, he only got 11 touches. This game came down solely to throwing the football because Cade Bell, who understands he's going to attack the other team's weaknesses and use, at the end of the day, like I said, our skill position, it's pretty deep. And we clearly saw it in the passing game. And it's clearly there. So the one thing that's very clear is that they used our skill position guys. Cade Bell did a really good job of that. And you guys saw me tweeting during the game. I'm like, just continue to throw the football. It's there. They can't stop it. They had, especially when we're going fast to a certain point, it hurt us a little bit at times because obviously we're going too fast. We didn't line up right. They had a play for a loss. It happens. But then you saw in the really the first, second, and fourth quarter where we're moving the ball at will and we're moving at a fast pace. It was like Swiss cheese out there. We had guys, especially too, they started dropping off into zone. We had guys, just perfectly in the zone play. It was unreal. Then they went to man, and then when they went to man, they were on Dejon Reynolds. Dejon Reynolds goes right by his guy, still goes into triple coverage, scores a touchdown. Donovan Reed, I keep calling him Donovan. Desmond Reed, he had, let's see, receiving here. Desmond Reed had 4 catches for 50 yards, 12.5. That's a 12.5 average, 2 touchdowns. So he still had a big day. So usually he does it on the ground and in the air. Today he just did it. Yesterday he just did it in the air. The guy's a hell of a player. The way he keeps adjusting every single week and just finding ways to be productive in the offense is incredible. And overall, I just think there's a lot of plays to be made in this game. Let's see here. Adam, I hope Jacobe is ready. Collier is bad, especially at run blocking. Adam, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I didn't think he played too bad, to be quite frank with you. I think he stepped in again. I think Jacobe was still a little bit hurt. He was allowing some pressures here and there, but I think he wasn't 100%. A gutsy performance by him. Majority of the time, I thought he did really well. You saw numerous times, especially too on a number of those touchdown passes, he had a clean pocket. And then when Holstein didn't have a clean pocket, he showed his athletic ability, went outside the pocket, kept his eyes downfield, and made some darts, especially on a throw and on a line. So, do I think Collier's like great? No, but guess what? Got to give him some credit though, man. He's done a good job. He's done a good job this year. Hail to Pitt, a wild season already. Pitt runs the Big 12. Hope WU fans keeps trusting the climb. LOL. Eli Holstein is that dude. Yeah, man. WVU is in for a tough run, man. Kansas looked horrible. This past game yesterday, but we're gonna see. There's not a lot of hype around their team anymore. At the end of the day, call it what it is. They really hyped these two games up, more of the Penn State game, but these were their two Super Bowls. They went 0-2. I think what was even crazier. West Virginia defensive coordinator Jordan Leslie deletes his account last night. I mean, when you coach in this profession, you got to be able to take heat. You have to. It's a part of the nature of the game. And for how badly they played and to delete your Twitter account, it just brings it even worse. That makes it even worse. You're drawing more attention to it. So he deletes his Twitter account. That all blows up last night. That was a horrible scene. It was overall, man, it was a bad night to be a Mountaineer. I mean, and especially to those last two drives. Those last two drives were absolutely horrific for West Virginia. I mean, Pitt did whatever it wanted. And then Eli Holstein, he gets pressured, doesn't matter. Doesn't go down, shakes people off, and takes off for multiple big yard gains. I mean, that's Eli Holstein, man. A lot of people in the spring, a lot of people owe that guy an apology, man. During the spring, people said, oh, he sucks. Nate was the only one that looked good. Eli was dealing with a hamstring injury all spring, even in the spring game. I'll tell you what, man, we got ourselves a quarterback. There's always room to improve, but Pitt has themselves a quarterback. That's really what it is. And yesterday, what you saw, Pitt was the better team, and it was hands down the better team. I think West Virginia's got a bunch of good talent for where it is. I don't understand some of the play calling they were going to. A lot of the stretch plays with C.J. Donaldson, I didn't understand that either. Jaheim White was pretty much absent. He was pretty much just quiet the entire time. Looking here, where's it here? Jaheim White, 13 carries for 46 yards. I mean, 3.5 yards per carry, a touchdown. He was pretty pedestrian. He didn't really do anything. Even with Pitt's defensive line struggles, they were still able to get pressure. I think this year's offensive line for West Virginia, like I said before, is not as good. Zach Frazier not being there, and Doug Nestor not being there is a big factor. You saw that a lot yesterday. And also, too, again, the amount of just in the fourth quarter, we gave West Virginia 3 points by going forward on fourth down and just a miscommunication on that call. When in reality, I really wanted to punt. You're up 17-14. I understand the aggressiveness, and that's how Caden lives. But just you live and die in those moments. If he'd have made it, we'd have been told him it was great. I'd be here today telling you it was great. At the end of the day, I was talking about punting, or at least if you were gonna go for it, run the football. You should be able to get a yard. Just miscommunication was there. The kind of stuff happens. You make it correctable. You go on the tape. You correct it. Not a big deal. But overall, they were just points in that game. You saw Pitt just really doing what it wanted to do. And there were a number of great defensive stops. I think the DBs played a hell of a game. Donovan McMillan, how many tackles did Donovan McMillan have in this game? I mean, it was ridiculous. Donovan McMillan, 13 tackles. Kyle Lewis, 13 tackles. Rasheem Biles, another good game. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a good game. Brandon George, Javon McIntyre, Ryland Gandy. All those guys had great games. I think Prentice Breu, he only had 1 tackle, but he did a great job filling up the spaces for a guy, again, a big physical guy. You just look at him on the field. He just looks incredible. He took up a lot of space, made sure to take double teams. That certainly helped the linebackers make a play. I like it. But overall, in this game, when I went back and reviewed it, I mean, the officiating was just horrific. Some of the calls were just absolute, like the late hit out of bounds. Brandon George did barely even touch the guy. He's going out of bounds to slow himself down. They get called for that. West Virginia gets that call. The bomb that Garrett Green threw, guy pushes off on I think it was Rylan Gandy or Rashad Battle. I can't remember which one. I got it in my notes here. Completely grabs his face mask, then pushes him off too. So you have a face mask call, a personal foul call, and a pass interference call, and they don't call either one of them. And they're so blatant. I mean, even on the call, Pat Bostic was even saying, how do you miss some of this stuff? This is just so blatantly clear. And it happened numerous times. Well, that happens. They get 7 points there. The same thing happens on the next drive. They get 3 points there. They're down 10 points with really 5 minutes to go. So the post-game presser, and I'm going to show you the post-game, just a quick snippet of Neil Brown. What he says here is just absolutely mind-blowing. And the beginning portion of the press conference, he's completely complaining about officiating. He says here at the end, it says here in here too, well, I disagree with calls, but I'm not going to say we lost because of officiating or this or that. I mean, there's been multiple games in his career where he's talked about officiating. I mean, heck, in the Penn State game this year, he was complaining about officiating. I don't understand that. And this is a lot of an image of what we saw in 2022 for making excuses about why he lost. And after this game, you saw the meltdown from West Virginia fans. They started losing their minds. I don't know how much support there's going to be going forward for West Virginia. I think this guy's clearly back on the hot seat. Obviously, West Virginia is millions and millions of dollars in the debt, in the red. Just not even as an athletic department, but actually as a university. I don't know if they can pay his buyout. I know the extension this year they signed with him brought down his buyout. That will probably help. But, I mean, I can tell you this, that defensive staff is definitely not coming back. Jordan Leslie's a guy who continues to struggle there, has not done a good job. When you look at the Neil Brown era, he's in his 6th year. But if you look at the 5 years prior, you take out the COVID year, 4 years, he had 3 losing seasons. I mean, it's just blatant mediocrity. And then the one season he did really well, it was a pretty soft schedule, and they still only went 8-4. And then they beat North Carolina without the 3rd overall draft pick in the NFL draft and then half the roster. A lot of things went right for him to come back. And guess what? He's back, and the proof's in the pudding. And one of the things I talked about, West Virginia did not beat a team that finished with a 500 record last year besides UNC. And again, did not have Drake May, did not have half their roster. That season really saved his job. And if Nate Yarnell plays last year, or even Christian Vare, Pitt probably beats them in Morgantown last year. So, I mean, a lot of things went his way last year. He's in the jam. Let's get to some of these comments here. Hail to Pitt, Mary Beth, and Robert McCafferty. Hail to Pitt, no voice, good day. Amen. Couldn't agree with you more. We got dominated on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Having a due to QB covers a lot of the warts. Eli's a due. We are 1-2 quarterbacks from last year. Yeah, Steve, I know this was an early on comment, but I don't agree about getting dominated on both sides. I mean, if we got dominated on both sides, we wouldn't have won that game or scored 38 points. I think the defensive line could certainly be a lot better, but I think the offensive line didn't do that bad. There were just a couple misconfusions, especially too on a couple of those sacks where he stepped up in the pocket. I don't know. I didn't see it that way. I feel bad for the fans that left early. They missed a hell of an ending. I know Pitt fans are used to the old days, but that has changed. It's a new day for Pitt football. Yeah, I see light. I'm gonna be honest with you. No one left early in our sections, man. We were all tuned in. I mean, nobody left. I think we were all there. I don't remember seeing anybody leave early. Holstein reminds me of a faster Eli Manning in the pocket, incredible and shifty, stepping in the pocket to avoid the rush. You can't teach that. Can we show some love to the Panther Pit as well? The student section has showed up this year. Wolf HD, this is a great point, and I actually want to bring this up too because it's a great topic. Shout out to the Panther Pit. Those guys, we're talking about this year, I want to say the last 4 years, the Panther Pit has been phenomenal. I mean, they were rocking. I mean, it was loud. I mean, there were numerous points in that game. That block punt was so loud. My buddy Brian, who was in front of me, I could not hear what he was saying. I mean, it was that loud. My buddy Kurt was in the next section over. I literally had to walk over to him, literally had to get in his ear to talk to him, just to tell him anything that was going on. I mean, just numerous plays, numerous times on 3rd downs and 4th downs. It was loud. I mean, that was just one hell of an environment. And that's a shout out to the Panther Pit, who continues to show up. That's the best student. I can say it right now. It's the best student section in the nation. Love the Panther Pit. Keep it up. We need you guys all year long. And we're going to need you guys against Youngstown State next week, too, because we'll all be there. Overshadowed their catchphrase all night. Amen. That missed offensive face mask on WVU at last TD was flabbergasting. Yeah, and that could have been a change of pace. Last year, that would have lost that team. Our team last year would have easily lost last year. That call was just a complete miss. Gary, it was nice meeting you on Saturday, JJ, in the stands and celebrating an unlikely Pitt victory. The last 5 minutes of the game officials were abysmal. It made it win much more satisfying. Gary, it was great to meet you as well. I appreciate you coming up and introducing yourself again. Love meeting people. Whenever I'm in the game, I'm usually dialed in, but I love when people come up to me and have a conversation. You're a hell of a Pitt fan. I loved meeting you. You're a great dude. I can tell you that. Great man. And let me tell you something. It was great to meet you and appreciate all the support you do for this channel, but more importantly for Pitt. I really appreciate it. Guys like you and the fans like you are perfect for our university. So I'll be beyond thankful. And again, it was great meeting you. Lots of missed face mask calls in this game. Yes, there were numerous face mask calls on Eli Holstein that they missed. I mean, the amount of times West Virginia was making a tackle and the missed calls that were there. Also, Nate Matlack was held multiple times by West Virginia. I mean, some of them just didn't make any sense. I couldn't believe Narduzzi took timeouts after we sacked Green to force a punt on the last possession with just over 2 minutes left. But you got to realize, Steve, also too, obviously with what happened, you have to understand too with what happened on the previous punt. What, 2 quarters? Or no, what is it, the third quarter? I don't mind it, man. They had the 2-minute warning. We were getting the ball anyways, and also too, when we sacked him there, we needed that time. We needed that time. We were losing at that time. We had to call a timeout. I mean, you want to save as much time as possible for your offense to go down the field. So I didn't have a problem with it. If anything, he actually used it. It's probably one of the few times that Narduzzi his actual clock management was really good. Saved us a lot of time. We went down the field. We saved about 30 seconds. You don't call a timeout, we lose that time. So actually, I didn't mind that. All the wide receivers have been impressive in terms of what to improve moving forward. O-line is to be way better. 5 sacks, no push in the run game. They got dominated in the trenches. I don't really agree with that, but a lot of people having to lose, which is warranted, but I really like Biles. I like both of them. I think they both did really well. I think Brandon George played a really good football game. You saw a bunch of good play by the linebackers in general. Overall, it's a strong group and a deep group. And it's funny. I see some people again, and it's only really one account. But the people that just keep talking about Ryan Manilak, who can't recruit, can't develop, you're watching in live time how good our linebacker room is. Just a fact. So I agree with you, Adam. Anthony took a friend of the family, high school kid, to his first ever college game. Couldn't have picked a better game. Anthony, that will live in infamy in his mind. His first college football game was the Backyard Brawl, and it was a victory again. And Pitt is 2-0 at home against West Virginia in this 4-game series. Cruz had a pick. I know it was a really good pick. Garrett Green is way overrated. WVU fans will remember the name Eli Holstein. I agree. Steve, I love that TO. Steve, I love that timeout. I'm one of those people who loves to have time on the clock. Yeah, I was going to say I love the timeout. That's just my opinion. I haven't had an opportunity to see a game reply yet. Can you talk about the targeting call on Isaiah Neal? That replay of the stadium didn't show a good view, in my opinion. Gary, so when I watched that, I mean, he did leave with the crown of the helmet, and one, it was late too. That was the only thing that kind of was just like you were scratching your head going, man, like he was already going down the ground. The ball was already out. He has to pull up. And I understand he's moving at a fast rate, but you got to pull up. And he did hit him with the crown of the helmet. So it was a good call, in my opinion. But just at the same time, the game is going so fast. It's just so hard. That's why I think just like eliminating guys from the game or tossing these guys out of the game are just not the way to go. Take a 15-yard penalty and that's it, unless it's absolutely egregious, which I don't think it was egregious. He was going fast, but Garrett Green was going down. He did hit him. I think it was a good penalty, but overall, he did use the crown of the helmet, which matches the role. Tim Bales, a WVU fan. Congratulations, JJ. Until next year, I promise we won't hand it to you on a silver platter. Pitt played with their heart and made the plays when it counted. Good luck on a great season. Tim, I appreciate it. But I can tell you this, WVU did not hand that game to Pitt. Pitt earned that game. At the end of the day, Pitt made the plays, West Virginia didn't. And, again, West Virginia's defense, look, just call it what it is really, really bad. And I think there's going to be a lot of talk going forward right now. We'll go into the interview here, the post-game presser by Neil Brown. He pretty much said, look, it's schematically, there's a problem schematically, but also, too, there's just not good players back there. They're not making the plays. And I tried telling this to numerous WVU people who didn't want to hear it, that they got two guys from Northwestern, but no offense, in the Big Ten, if you're not Ohio State, who's really throwing the ball around the yard in the Big Ten? Really nobody. In the Big 12 and the ACC, especially the ACC, where it's all about quarterback play, you're going to see a lot of balls go through the air. You're going to see a lot of balls go through the air with the Big 12. I just don't understand those pickups. I didn't understand that. So I just think that they have a talent deficiency on the back end. But what also hurts you is that just schematically, West Virginia looked horrid on their pass defense. Like the one person who I trust with WVU News is Kuz. Kuz's corner. He does a great job. And I was tweeting out live in the game, and I was watching it. You can see right from behind. West Virginia, especially Hollis. Hollis was just lost out there. I don't even know why he was playing. After the first quarter, I'd have pulled his ass immediately. He had no idea what was going on. But just it looked like Swiss cheese. There's holes everywhere. And when I tweeted out, you got to keep passing, Kuz even responded to me and said, he's like, I don't blame you. I would keep passing too. I don't know if we can stop this. It's just that some of those guys, they need to understand the basics of the defense. And there's clearly a misconception there. And on top of that, what kills me is that Jordan Leslie deletes his Twitter account, which even brings more attention to it. I don't know. At the end of the day, Tim, I really appreciate it. I love this game's back because it's a backyard brawl. I think, in my opinion, for a biased reason, everyone talks about Ohio State and Michigan. I think the West Virginia Pitt backyard brawl is the best football rivalry in college football right now. And I cannot wait to see those numbers. We are on ESPN2. Everybody was watching Pitt versus West Virginia in the backyard brawl. Everybody. And again, it's such a great game for both schools, and college football, as I've stated for a while, is about rivalries. That's why I'm so happy this game's back on there. I hope, obviously I heard West Virginia does not want to play Alabama. I can obviously imagine for a number of reasons, but if that does happen, I hope Pitt does line that up to where we can figure something out in our schedule to make sure we face West Virginia, depending upon what our future schedule looks like. We have Wisconsin on there. Pitt's just lined these games up. I think UCF's on there again. We're just playing 11 P4 games, which I don't, Pitt kills me with that sometimes, but Pitt doesn't shy away from anybody. Just how it is. But I appreciate that, Tim. And honestly, good luck to you guys in the rest of the year too. Just wishing nothing but the best for you guys. Watching the game live, I agree with you. Missed tackles, Lovelace missed behind the line of scrimmage. Lawrence, I'm telling you, that's why, when you go back, because in hindsight, you're watching the game, and for me personally, it's like, okay, man, we're not getting any pressure here. Why are we missing this? In reality, numerous times they had pressure. Numerous times across the board, Pitt had pressure. It's finishing the play. They have to make tackles. They have to complete the play. And I think when you watch these games over and over and over and over and over, I didn't finish watching film last night. I went from 2 to 5 a.m. Some of the stuff was just like, man, they just complete the tackle. It's just, there's just a lot of other stuff that doesn't even happen because we're off the field. But you have to complete the play. And obviously, too, West Virginia's a running team. Hope you guys truly dominate the ACC this year. It'll make us look a lot better next year when you come to town. Keep up the great work. Tim, I really appreciate it, brother. It's a travesty that we have to wait 5 years for another brawl here in Pittsburgh. Hoping Disuss is right that it will be in the cold weather game. Dude, Jake, from what I've heard, not in this series, not next year in Morgantown, but the next series after that, from what I've been told as well, I've actually reached out to other people that would know this. It's supposed to be for that next game, 4-game series. It's supposed to be on Thanksgiving, which is what it was like in the old days, which I'm totally good for. That'll be a great ratings game overall across the board. So I'll be happy for that. Paris, my man Paris, excited to see these men. JJ, hope we take care of Youngstown State, handling, get healthy for UNC. Hope to see you there, 5-0. Paris, couldn't agree more, brother. Cannot wait to see this team, what they do going forward. Jeff Goldberg, believe. Amen, baby. Eli Holstein. And all the people that said Eli wasn't good, the critics are silently going away. And what's even great right now is that Eli's playing at a high level right now, but he still hasn't even reached his full potential yet. These next 2 years for Eli Holstein and this K-Bell offense is going to be incredible. I mean, he's just going to grow at a rapid rate. He has everything you need to be an NFL-style quarterback. I'm just beyond happy for him. And then, obviously, too, if you have not done so, follow Mike McGlynn. He was the honorary captain yesterday. Obviously, a Pitt legend on the offensive line. Played in the NFL for, I think it was up to 10 years. I mean, he was with the Philadelphia Eagles for a while. Just a stud. Really good relationship there. He does things for the right reason. If you're not following Mike McGlynn on Twitter, I would do so. Great guy, and just beyond thankful for his relationship there. The Cal Pitt game went from being bottom of the barrel ACC game to the battle of the ACC sleeper teams. Amen. Love it. We need to back up the Brinks truck to keep K-Bell. I agree. And before we get into, I switch over to stop answering some questions here. At the end of the day, guys, we need to get on board with Alliance 412. If you haven't seen it enough across the board, Alliance 412 is not going anywhere. It will partner with the University of Pittsburgh going forward in terms of revenue sharing, but the relationships that are being built right now are so crucial into what's going on forward, what's really going to happen as we go down the road. Alliance 412, if you are not a member, you should become a member today. And for me, everyone's different. Preferably I tell people to do the 1976, just do that, $20 a month. For me, I do the 41, it's like $41 and 20 cents, the 412 level. Guys, at the end of the day, NIL is not going anywhere. And to the people that say, well, I'm not on board, I'm making a stand and not paying players, that's fine, but you're part of the problem. This isn't going anywhere. And as we've seen across the board, just look at it. They're being paid. If you want the great players to stay, we have to support the team. You have to support the university. And from what I've heard from after that Backyard Brawl game, more people have joined Alliance 412. And obviously, from what I've heard from behind closed doors, our big donors are coming out in drones right now. Guys, there's not a better time for anybody to jump on board with Alliance 412. The slogan of, do it together, change the game together, it really rings true. This is it. There's no reason why a school like Pitt can't be dominant in college football. The history and the tradition that we have, but more importantly, the overall resources that we have to certainly compete at this level. I just think Pitt is on the verge of doing something really special. Really is. So we can all agree that Eli is the Baba Yaga now. Yes, certainly he's the boogeyman for the Mountaineers. And guess what? To correct you, Will, he's not the boogeyman. He's the guy that goes after to take out the boogeyman. That's a little bit of that John Wick in him. And again, I love that. That's just a different type of mentality that you just love to see. He is that dude. And that just, guys, that stuff, that shit fires me up. I love having a quarterback that loves to get in people's grill. And you see the emotional side of it when after he scored a touchdown. But guess what? When he wasn't on the field and Nate Yarnell was out there and Derek Davis, hometown hero, Gateway kid who went from the Whippeal to Pitt, who will remember that play for the rest of his life, scoring a touchdown, beating the West Virginia Mountaineers at home. I'm telling you right now, there's nothing better. And he was pumped for those guys, pumped for Nate, pumped for Derek Davis. That's this type of team. It's a completely close group. They have eliminated the people that have been a problem in that locker room. It's just great to see. This team is a no-die, never-quit team. And you're about to see potentially something very special this year. So continue to lock in, subscribe to Alliance 412 and support these players. And also, too, always show up to the games. The atmosphere there on Saturday was insane. Insane. My voice is still repairing. Speedy Tortoise, is Fitzsimmons' injury serious? Any chance they'll hold him out regardless next week? So he's good for UNC. I don't even think he would be ready for next week, to be honest with you. I would think, obviously I don't have any inside track on this. I would think probably the earliest is UNC because I think there's a bye week after the Youngstown State game. I could be wrong. There might be one. I think they might play UNC. That might be a stretch too. And there also may be one other injured player coming off the DL, off of the injured reserve list and coming on to play. So we'll see. I wonder how much of the folks saying the O-line has got dominant might just be comparing it to the unbelievable 2021 offensive line we had. These guys are young. Yeah, they're comparing to 2021 because that 2021 offensive line was incredible. But overall, people see the 5 sacks are like, oh, what the hell? Some of those, you know what? Hey, they ran a blitz package. They ran, let's be honest, too. They blitzed a lot, 5 to 6 guys. A lot of the times when you go back and watch, especially to the TDs, and especially to a lot of the dimes that Eli Holstein threw, he had pressure, but there's a number of times he had a great pocket. So, for me, I understand the defensive line. People saying, hey, we need more pressure. We need guys to be more consistent up front. Guys, there's a couple guys that had a bad day on the defensive line. I understand that, but the offensive line, I really didn't have a gripe about it. You saw one drive they had back-to-back sacks, but after that, it wasn't really an issue going forward. And people said, we couldn't run the football. We weren't trying to run the football, guys. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, and I clearly stated in the first quarter, I'm like, they're going to throw the football because this pass defense is horrible. It's horrible. It's wide open. If you stay on schedule and you don't have the penalties, you can do whatever you want. All right, so here, drop this off here real quick. I'm going to share my screen with you guys here. Take this off here. Let me see here. Just listen to these comments from Neil Brown after the game. This was just a little bit too much for me. I don't know. It just, it fits Neil, I guess. It is what it is. But here's what Neil Brown thought of the comments that Pat Narduzzi said that they beat West Virginia in the Backyard Brawl and the officiating.
Oh yeah, without question. Yeah, I mean this one's probably as bad or worse. You're up 10.
Sorry, do you have any reaction? Coach Narduzzi said he beat West Virginia and the officials after the game.
Yeah, I think that's bullshit. I don't think. I thought the officials. We can say what we want to, but the officials. I'm not real pleased with them either. But I don't know about that. You'll never hear me blame the officials or anything. Like, I disagree with calls, but it's a really hard game to officiate.
So again, there, he says there, one, he said it was bullshit that Pitt didn't beat. Get my brand back up here. He said it was bullshit that Pitt didn't beat West Virginia and the officials. I mean, they don't have that 10-point lead without the officiating that was currently there. I mean, it's not even close. And to not even bring up, and then later on he brings up, well, we had a touchdown that came back. Well, it was a holding call. Let's be realistic. There were numerous calls, and we go against the numbers here. Let's really look at the officiating here. He said he wants to talk about the officiating, how bad it was. Let's look at team stats here. Overall, where's it at here? Penalties. Here are penalties right here. If we want to talk about penalties, West Virginia was penalized only 7 times for 67 yards. Pitt was penalized 12 times, 5 more times for 112 yards. I mean, there's clearly some discrepancy there. And the times that it was called against Pitt was ridiculous, especially on the number of scoring drives. Even at the end of the game there, I mean, that was ridiculous. It was a flag every play. And even the announcers were saying that this is getting to be a little absurd. So I thought those comments, and again, Neil did that in 2022. He talked about that after the game. Hey, guys, don't lose faith in this team. We're going to be fine. I'll never blame the officiating. He says he'll never blame the officiating there. I don't know what he's talking about. He was literally just doing it early on in the game. And then he even did it against Penn State this year. Not even describing the times that he's done it in the past. So, I mean, I don't know. That was a little crazy to me. Let's see here. 5 WVU players have been drafted under Brown's tenure, and McAfee has the audacity to say Pitt doesn't have talented players. Yeah, that's just part of the rivalry, man. He said some really crazy stuff. And again, he's a Mountaineer. He's not going to say Pitt's good. You know what I mean? And actually, it was kind of crazy. The rest of besides obviously Nick Saban is a West Virginia guy, but even Kirk Herbstreit told him, hey, look, we're kind of over the over-under for how many times we talk about West Virginia. But yeah, Pat Narduzzi's had more winning seasons, more championships. He's actually won a conference title, been to the conference title game twice, won his division twice, won an ACC title, has had multiple winning seasons, 20 wins in 2 years. I mean, multiple 9+ win seasons. At the end of the day, overall, and you look at the records too, now Neil Brown today, as of today, he's 30 at West Virginia. He has 32 wins and 31 losses. I mean, so then again, I don't know. And in the last 3 years, besides last year, the previous year, what is it, 2022? From 2020 to 2022, Pitt led the ACC every year in guys drafted. It was roughly about 7 to 9 players a year. And again, I understand he's a West Virginia guy. He'll never say they did well or anything like that, or it's not a big deal. They haven't accomplished anything. Like people were saying in the comment section, what has West Virginia accomplished? I mean, under Neil Brown, it's been straight mediocrity. I mean, they have been horrible. Again, take out the COVID year. It's 4 years, 4 seasons if you take out COVID. Because obviously between all the COVID years and stuff like that, for all the teams, he's had 4 seasons. He's had 3 losing seasons. I mean, that is just mediocrity. I mean, not good. I mean, heck, West Virginia fans were right to want to get him fired the previous years. And then as they went into the offseason, West Virginia fans automatically said, us re-signing this guy or even extending him or keeping him here is worse. But I understand why they had to keep him there, because they can't afford the buyout. Like a lot of schools, I think their situation's a little bit more dire. But, I mean, at the same time, though, it's just you can't not every school can buy out every coach. Pitt's in the same boat right now. But at the same time, though, Pat Narduzzi's a lot better of a head football coach than Neil Brown. And Neil Brown, from everything I've been told, is a great guy. But when it comes to game day decisions, lackluster play calling, I think the passing game for them has just deteriorated. The run game looked good, but they had their chunk plays. But there's a lot of stuff across the board that he has to get corrected. And I think for me personally, I think for him to come back, because I know they lowered the buyout for him to get fired after this year, which now I understand why. And it made a lot of sense. I told people in the beginning of the year, if you're an athletic director and you lower someone's buyout to leave or to fire somebody, you clearly don't have confidence in them. And I think right now, for Neil Brown's sake, he needs to light it up in Big 12 play, which is possible. Anything can happen. Everybody gets better. I think it's going to get a lot harder to get better. But overall, he has to really play at a high level, or that whole defensive staff's going to get fired, or he's not going to make it. And then you have, when he gets fired, the whole transfer portal opens up for them, which would be just catastrophic. So we'll see. Agreed on your take of our defense. Sad but true. Eli has 2 great comebacks, but has looked shaky at times, missing open guys. I think maybe worth it to see what we have in Nate Yarnell in the YSU game. He looked poised and handling off the Davis. Yeah, Nate, I can't tell if that's got to be sarcasm or you got to be a WVU fan. I don't know, because that doesn't make any sense. I mean, he is literally the first quarterback at Pitt since, heck, was it Pickett? Pickett was the last one in 2021. But before Pickett was back to like Marino and Kavanaugh, who threw for 3 straight 300-yard games. And he's a redshirt freshman. Yeah, I wouldn't do that at all. That just doesn't make any sense. Eli's the guy. I mean, it's pretty clear. Do you think Eli is told that while stepping up in the pocket to look to pass early in the game, but in the second half look to run? Same theme these last 2 games. Rich, no, I think overall, I think just when you look at this defense, if there's room to run, he's going to run. But he understands he's going to go through progressions. You've seen numerous times where even in the second half, even that last drive, to get down the field in dire situations, do you want to take a risk of throwing the ball in the air? Or in numerous cases here, he had 20 yards. I mean, they've clearly told him you're athletic enough. It's not like he's just a pocket thrower, a pocket passer where he can't run. He's a 4.5 40 guy. Run. If you have 20 yards in front of you, run. There's no reason not to. So I think just overall, it worked out, especially too. On some of those, they had a couple pressure plays. But at the end of the day, if it's there, it's for 20 yards, and you saw a couple of them, that's great. But then you also saw he had 20 yards in front of him on the Dejon Reynolds play. He had 20 yards in front of him, but he threw it down the field for 40 yards. Scored a touchdown, and Dejon Reynolds had a hell of a play on that. So I think overall, no, he's not coached to just take off and run. Go through your progressions, take what they give you, and it's very simple. Go through your progression. If you don't have it there, have your check down right there. If you don't like the check down, if you can go run for more, go run. And it's worked out to this point, which is why, in the last 2 games, we've had over 30-plus points. If we had lost, JJ, which bridge, in your opinion, would have been the best choice to jump off of, river or no river? I don't know. I probably wouldn't have been like that, because there's a lot of stuff that towards the end of that game that just even the stands, people were saying it just didn't make any sense. The flags that were going against Pitt were just absolutely atrocious. So I don't know if I'd have been that pissed off, to be honest with you. It sucked to lose against WVU, but I don't think so. It's only year 1 of K-Bell offense with a redshirt freshman, and we can seemingly score whenever and however we want. Can you talk about the offense ceiling overall in the next few years? I think it's high, man. Again, it's all about keeping your players, jumping on board to make sure you know who you have, who you don't have. And again, there's other areas you can get better at. I think there's a lot of guys that they're going to add guys to the portal. We have a bunch of good wide receivers now, but this is Kanate Mumfield's last year. He'll be gone. I think obviously our wide receiver class looks really, really good. A couple 4-stars in there. They'll probably add one more guy through the portal next year. You'll probably see some guys who are not playing this year. There's probably a number of guys that aren't playing this year. They're going to leave. That kind of stuff. When it comes to roster management, I worry about that till the end of the year, because just the portal and NIL have just blown this stuff up the proportions that you can't even guess for it. You can't even guess. So at this point, all I know is this team has clearly learned it fast. People who complained about, Jeremy Darveau, JJ Laster, Lindsey Lamar, Jacob Barnowski, clearly they made the right hires, because they are clearly making adjustments in the game. So overall, I think the ceiling is extremely high, and there's certain things you can correct here and there, but right now you correct the little things here and there, this offense explodes for 30, 40 plus points a game. And that game's probably going to come sooner than later. Just my opinion. High Top Sports, if you're not following him, Florida Gators, give him a follow. Good win champ. I appreciate it. Hail to Pitt. The fact that Holstein is 3 games into his college career is mind-boggling. This kid has the it factor. Feels like we haven't even scratched the surface of what he can do this offense. Maddie, I couldn't agree more with you. That's why I kind of I don't understand the comments about, well, let's just play Nate Yarnell against Youngstown State. No. If Eli Holstein goes out there and puts up 30 or 40 points in the first half, then yeah, put Nate Yarnell in, because obviously you don't want him getting hurt. But at the end of the day, you need those repetitions out there to get better. In Youngstown State, I don't care who's on the schedule. I never want to hear people talking about, we're going to rest this guy, we're going to rest that guy. I think Desmond Reed will probably get rested because he was a little banged up towards the end of the game. He got taken out towards the end of the game. He may get rested because obviously he's had a little bit. He's had a couple bumps and bruises here and there. But overall, the rest of those guys should play. Maybe Ryan Jacoby won't play to get him healthy because he was still lingering with an injury there. Maybe get him healthy. But overall, your job should be going out there in the first half to score 30, 40 points. Maybe play the first drive in the second half and then hand the keys off like you did at Kent State. That's what your job is there. But your job at this point is to make sure those guys play, because you need more repetitions. And the same thing goes to the defense as well. The defense needs as much reps as possible. There's a lot of things to correct on defense. Their goal should be a shutout against Youngstown State. And the goal for the offense should be 60-plus points. Hands down, no questions asked. And they got to prepare for like any other team. Youngstown State has been a proud football team, and they've had numerous upsets throughout the years. Never take anybody lightly. Don't care who they are. And the starters should start. It's that simple. WRW Pitt, 29 likes, 86 watching. Yeah, guys, obviously we have altogether, we have about, 739 people watching. We're roughly getting up to 100 people on YouTube. If you've not done so, please head over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Obviously, check out a lot of my previous content. We're probably going to start doing a lot more of the ACC stuff, because my career is starting to get settled down a little bit. We've been so crazy. Obviously, too, check out the Sunday conversations and also share this to all your friends. And obviously, too, leave a comment in the comment section after it's posted. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts after the show's over. Our offense is fun and exciting. You attract better recruits with this type of offense. Couldn't agree more. And there was a lot of recruits there on Saturday. And the overall topic has been tremendous. Amen, Steve. Brandon George, a liability. There's a reason Cincinnati and WVU gashed us in the running game. Cincy and WVU averaged over 5 yards a carry. Brandon George is slow to sideline. Don't be a homer. Yeah, Matt, obviously, I don't agree with you at all. I mean, let's be honest. They had a couple chunk plays, but you're telling me that it's basically just one guy. Like I said before, it has to be a complete overall defensive of performance. The defensive line can be better. They're running stunts up front to allow a lot more gaps. Some of these guys aren't playing gap to gap. I just think to single out one guy and call a guy a liability when Brendan George had 2 tackles for loss in this game, also 2 did really good in pass game. So not being a homer, just calling it the way it is. Take it or leave it. Great job, JJ. Thank you. A win is a win, and it's week 3. Do you think the ACC is good? Do you think Pitt wins it? The ACC is doing a pretty damn good job. I can tell you this, probably the only bad team out there right now is probably Florida State. For a team that says they're too good for the ACC, they're just getting their ass beat by all these ACC teams, and now non-ACC teams. But when you look across the board between, the atrocious losses, like Toledo beat the living shit out of Mississippi State yesterday. The Big 12 has had numerous bad losses between UNLV twice, almost lost to Abilene Christian. Texas Tech has had really bad losses. Kansas has had some bad losses. Overall, I like what the ACC has done this year. It's a lot deeper. But also, too, just go look at the coaches up and down the conference. So Fran Brown has really showed out this year. I think he's done a really good job. Fran Brown is for a guy who's a first-year head football coach. They're thanking Ohio State. Kyle McCord has been lighting it up. I think that kind of tells you a little bit more about a problem with a guy like, Ryan Day. We'll continue to see what that looks like. But overall, I like what the ACC has done this year. It's a lot deeper this year. And there's numerous teams in this conference that can compete at a high level. I still think right now Miami's probably the favorite to win it right now. Cam Ward and Miami are playing at a whole different level. Their offense is clicking. Their defense is clicking. They beat the brakes off of Florida. I mean that game wasn't even a deciding factor. It wasn't even close. Heck, they left the stadium saying how quiet it was. So overall, there's been a lot of good wins. Obviously, NC State had a rough loss against Tennessee. Pitt's 2-0 against the Big 12. Numerous big wins out of that conference. So overall, I like the ACC, and I think it's a really good conference. Offense can't score whenever and however once we had 4 yards. Yeah, Prager, when you look at the overall offense in the third quarter, I mean, if common sense could tell you, when you look at what the team actually did, they had a block punt, and their defense was on the field. That's why they weren't on the field. They had literally one possession on offense in the third quarter. So, again, I don't know what you're talking about. And we scored 38 points in the game. Heck, we scored 14 points. We scored 14 points in 4 minutes. They can score when they want. I saw 5-star Larry Moon was there. Would love to see they keep the high-tier hometown kid. Yeah, he was there. There were a bunch of guys. I think they had over about 40 guys that were there. Larry Moon's obviously he's a huge recruit. It was really cool to see, obviously Revis Island, talking to him, giving him some coaching tips. I thought he did a really good job. That was really cool to see overall. It's always good to see the hometown kids going there, but more importantly, good to see a hometown kid like Derek Davis score that touchdown to win the game against WVU. What's going on, bro? Jonathan Lewis, my man. Eli Holstein looking good. I know, man. We're pumped. But overall, when you look at the overall stats again, Pitt was just a better team today. I think overall, when you look at this team, a lot going forward. It's a team that doesn't quit no matter what type of adversity is, especially the officiating. Overall, it's good. Going forward for West Virginia, they've got a lot of problems. There's a lot of stuff to figure out. Garrett Green, for how high the hopes were from WVU fans, there's lots of stuff that he needs to correct and to stop the regression that he's going through. But overall, interesting game to say the least. And obviously Pitt won the turnover battle. Pitt had no turnovers. West Virginia had 2. Overall, just one hell of a game. Hell of a game. And just beyond proud of what Pitt was able to do. Now Pitt in this so far in this 4-game series, Pitt's they've played 3 games so far. Pitt's 2-1 in the series. Pitt is now 63-41 overall all time against West Virginia in the Backyard Brawl. Obviously holding a steady lead on that. You can't ask for more than that, man. GBO, I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, it's Tennessee, Power T. Hail to Pitt. Guys, as always, it's been another episode. We're an hour and 10 minutes in. I can't thank you guys enough. Share this with your friends. Share this with everybody. Again, it was great to meet so many of you. If you haven't done so, hit the like button down below. It certainly helps out with the algorithm. But more importantly, guys, Pitt is 3-0 during this season. Matches the win total from last year. They take care of business against Youngstown State. Our focus goes now to Youngstown State this week. I'll be putting out a preview video on Youngstown State, what they had to prepare for that. Pitt now prepares to go 4-0 in their season so far after 2 P5 wins or 2 P4 wins. The only other team, also fun fact, the only other team in the Power 4 that has 2 wins against Power 4 teams is Georgia. So it's right now Georgia and Pitt are the only 2 P4 teams that have two or more wins against the Power 4. It's a good company to be in. It continues to go the right way, and Pitt's really just continue to build. No quit, no die. That's what it is. Guys, thank you again. Obviously, Chicken, I appreciate you tuning in here. Congratulations, Pitt fans. It was a great game. Guys, as always and forever, hail to Pitt. And obviously, too, hail to the ACC. I'll see you guys next time.